I'm going to tell you something most people don't want to hear. Your morning isn't broken because you're tired. It's broken because you start it like everyone else. You wake up, you wait to feel ready, and you hope motivation shows up. That approach might get you through a slow Tuesday, but in the teams, that mindset gets people killed. I learned that the hard way on a cold morning in Afghanistan when I had exactly 5 minutes to get my head locked in before stepping into a mission I wasn't mentally prepared for. 5 minutes, no warm up, no easing into the day. And what happened in that tiny window didn't just save the op, it rewired my entire life. Today, I'll show you the same protocol I discovered that morning, a protocol that flips your brain from hesitation into execution even when every cell in your body wants to quit. But before we go any further, put your phone down. Seriously, lock the screen, flip it over, throw it across the room if you have to. If you can't stop scrolling for the next few minutes, click off this video. I mean it, this is your first test. If you can't control a 5-inch screen, you're not ready to control your life. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to give you something that demands commitment. If you're still here, good, you passed test 1. Now let's move. My name is John. I'm an ex-Navy SEAL, and I spent over a decade in the world's most elite special operations force. I survived Bud-S, combat deployments, and more nights of fear and exhaustion than I can count. But the truth is, the lessons that shaped me the most didn't happen during the missions. They happened in the moments right before them. Those early hours when the world was silent, when you felt the weight of the operation pressing into your chest, and the only thing you had to rely on was your mind. What I'm about to teach you isn't some self-help fluff. This is not wake up early and visualize success. This is the exact mental framework that kept me alive. And if you use it for just 7 days, you will feel your discipline harden, your mind sharpen, and your confidence rise in a way you have never experienced. Here's what we're covering today. This strategy is built like a mission brief, clear, simple, and impossible to misunderstand. First, I'm going to walk you through the exact moment I realized everything I'd been taught about morning mindset was wrong. Second, I'll break down the 5-minute protocol, the same internal sequence I ran in my head before stepping out on operations. And finally, I'll show you how to apply this protocol tomorrow morning in the first 60 seconds after your eyes open. Not after coffee, not after breakfast. The second you open your eyes, that's your battlefield. And before we dive deep, I want you to do something for me. Drop a comment and tell me one thing you want to conquer this month. Consider it your mission objective. I read these myself. When you write it down, you're not just watching, you're deploying. All right, gear up. Let's move into the moment that changed everything. At 6 a.m., most people think they're fighting tiredness or lack of motivation or a bad night of sleep. They're not. They're fighting their own brain, and the brutal truth is the brain usually wins. When I was in the teams, I learned something that shocked me. Your brain wakes up before you do, and its first objective of the day isn't to make you productive, it's to protect you. And protection, to the primitive mind, means comfort. It means staying warm, staying still, staying exactly where you are. That's what I call the comfort bias. It's the default operating system you wake up with every morning, and it's the reason most people lose the day before their feet even touch the floor. When I first started noticing this, it wasn't during some life or death mission. It was during the small, silent moments, those seconds right after waking up in a freezing hooch, hearing the wind beat against the tent walls, knowing we had a long patrol ahead. My body wanted rest, my mind wanted warmth, and every instinct I had told me to lie still. That's the comfort bias in action. It shows up at home too. Snooze button, warm blankets, the idea that 5 more minutes will somehow fix your life. But in the teams, hesitation is the enemy, and I realized that the first fight of the day is always the fight inside your mind. Here's the part most people get wrong. Discipline is not strongest in the middle of the day, when you've warmed up, eaten, stretched, or checked off a few tasks. Discipline is strongest in the first 5 minutes after waking up. Those first moments are an unfiltered look at who's really in charge, you or your comfort bias. Your brain hasn't fully booted up yet. Your emotions aren't loud, your doubts aren't talking, and because your mind is still foggy, it hasn't built its excuses. That window is your advantage, but only if you strike before your brain starts negotiating. If you don't, it will talk you into staying exactly where you are every single time. This ties directly into what we learned in Bud-S, the 40% rule. When your mind says you're done, when it screams that you're exhausted, overwhelmed, or incapable, you're only operating at about 40% of your actual capacity. The brain lies to you to keep you safe. In training, we'd run for miles under the burning sun, covered in sand, lungs on fire, legs shaking, and an instructor would yell, "You're not even halfway empty." And the crazy part is, they were right. You push, and suddenly there's another gear, and another, and another. That's the system I started applying to my mornings. If my mind said, stay still, that became the signal to move. If I felt resistance, that meant go. You have far more in you than your brain wants you to believe, especially at 6 a.m. What separates elite operators from civilians isn't talent or toughness. It's response speed. We don't give the brain time to negotiate. There's a rule we lived by. Act before you think twice. When the alarm hits, we move. When the cold air hits the skin, we accept it. When discomfort shows up, we step into it instead of waiting for permission to feel ready. The moment you wake up, your brain opens a tiny door, a door where action is easier than overthinking. But that door slams shut fast. Most people never walk through it. SEALs do, because once you take that first step, you've overridden the comfort bias, broken the negotiation cycle, and proven to your brain that you, not your feelings, run the show. And once you win that first battle, the rest of the day falls in line. When people hear 5-minute protocol, they picture something soft, something relaxed, something gentle to ease them into the morning. What I'm about to give you is the opposite. This is the exact sequence I used in the teams when I had less than 5 minutes to turn exhaustion, fear, or hesitation into clarity and action. It's built to shock your system, override your excuses, and put you in command before your mind starts negotiating. Every second has a purpose, and every step is tied to real moments where this simple framework kept me sharp in situations where failure was not an option. The first 45 seconds are the cold exposure breath reset. And no, you don't need an ice bath. You just need cold water. As soon as you get out of bed, you splash that cold water onto your face, hard, and you take 3 slow, deep breaths through the nose, out through the mouth. The shock is intentional. It snaps your nervous system out of comfort mode and into alertness. I learned this during a winter deployment when we didn't have heat and mornings felt like waking inside a block of ice. One of the older guys taught me the trick. Use the cold before it uses you. He meant, don't wait for the environment to break you, embrace it first. Cold triggers your survival response, but when you pair it with controlled breathing, you hijack that response and convert panic into calm readiness. That combination teaches your brain that you can feel discomfort without losing control. Most people never develop that skill. Next comes the micro mission commitment. This takes exactly 60 seconds. You stand still, you breathe normally, and you choose one mission for the day, not 5, not 10, just one. This is where civilians fail. They start the day with a list, not a priority. In combat, we had dozens of variables, dozens of unknowns, but we always had a single mission objective that grounded everything else. I did the same thing on that cold morning in Afghanistan. I asked myself one question: what is the single action that moves the mission forward today? You have to do this in the morning because your brain is still quiet and your ego hasn't woken up to complicate things. Choosing one micro mission gives your mind a clear, non-negotiable target. It also erases overwhelm. If you don't know where you're going, your brain will drag you back to comfort. But if you give it one direction, it will follow. Now you move into the SEAL posture lock-in, 30 seconds. This is simple but powerful. Stand tall, chest open, shoulders back, feet grounded, not puffed up, not fake confidence, just structural readiness. Body leads mind. We learned this again and again during training. The way you hold your body becomes the way you hold your thoughts. When you collapse your posture, your brain interprets it as threat or defeat. When you lift your posture, it interprets strength, stability, and readiness. Before stepping out on ops, we'd always take a moment to reset posture. It wasn't vanity, it was programming. You can't think like a warrior if you stand like a victim. 30 seconds of physical alignment creates mental alignment. After posture comes the longest phase. Target visualization, a full 90 seconds. This isn't fluffy manifestation. This is tactical mental rehearsal, the same type we did before entering compounds or boarding helicopters. You close your eyes and visualize your micro mission for the day in 3 layers: the action, the obstacle, and the response. See yourself doing the target behavior. Then visualize what will try to stop you. Then picture yourself overcoming it. This creates neural pathways that make execution automatic later. When I used this before missions, it wasn't to fantasize about success. It was to prepare for resistance. That's what makes this step powerful for civilians. Most people quit because the first obstacle surprises them. When you visualize it ahead of time, you remove the element of surprise and your brain treats the obstacle as expected rather than threatening. The final minute is the identity reaffirmation statement. This is the part people get wrong because they confuse it with empty affirmations. In the teams, identity wasn't something we hoped for. It was something we declared through action. During this last minute, you speak out loud who you are choosing to be today, not who you feel like, who you choose. On that cold morning before my mission, I whispered to myself, "You are a seal. You move whether you feel ready or not." And instantly, my brain aligned with that identity. Humans act according to who they believe they are. When you declare your identity out loud, calmly, clearly, you give your brain a new operating system. If you say, "I am disciplined," you will act disciplined. If you say, "I execute," you will execute. You are reminding your mind who is in charge. When these 5 steps are done back to back, something powerful happens. You've shocked the body awake, calmed the nervous system, chosen your direction, aligned your posture, rehearsed success, prepared for obstacles, and locked in your identity, all before your brain has time to talk you out of becoming the person you want to be. That's why this works. Not because it's magical, but because it gives you the advantage in the only battle that matters, the one inside your own head. I didn't create this 5-minute protocol in a quiet room with a notebook. I forged it under pressure, in moments where the cost of hesitation was measured in blood, not inconvenience. One of the first times I realized its true power was during a mission that went sideways before it even began. We were launching at sunrise, and the night before had been chaos. Intel changes, last-minute adjustments, zero sleep. When my eyes snapped open that morning, my mind was foggy, my heart was racing, and the old instinct, the comfort bias, was whispering to stay still, to breathe, to wait until I felt ready. But missions don't wait for feelings. I rolled out of the cot, splashed cold water on my face, and did exactly what I've taught you. I took the deep breaths. I committed to my micro mission. I locked my posture in, visualized the objective, reaffirmed who I was. 5 minutes, and everything shifted. When we moved out, I wasn't dragging my mind along. It was already ahead of me, already executing. Later that day, I ended up taking point on a complicated entry because I was the only one mentally sharp enough in that moment. If I had waited for motivation, I would have been a liability. Instead, I became an anchor for the team. I saw the protocol's power again during a desert patrol that stretched longer than planned. Heat exhaustion, dehydration, and fatigue hit us all hard. We paused to regroup, and I watched several guys slump into themselves, letting their posture collapse, letting their minds drift. I stepped aside, did a fast version of the protocol, and within seconds, my awareness sharpened. I was scanning better, thinking clearer, stabilizing faster. Your body can be hurting, but if your mind is aligned, you stay operational. That's why I teach this the way I do. It's not mental fluff, it's survival. But the real proof of this system didn't show up on the battlefield. It showed up years later when I started teaching it to people who weren't chasing insurgents, they were chasing better lives. One of the first civilians I worked with was an entrepreneur running a failing business. His mornings were a mess, scrolling, panic, avoidance. I gave him the protocol and told him to run it for 7 days. By day 3, he told me something that hit hard. "I don't feel like the world is attacking me anymore. I feel like I'm showing up armed." His decisions got sharper. His sales calls improved. His stress dropped. His team started following his lead. Within a month, his revenue turned around. Not because he became smarter, but because he became mentally prepared before the chaos hit. Then there was a mom of 3 who came to me feeling like her life was spiraling. She woke up overwhelmed, exhausted, and already behind. She didn't believe 5 minutes could change anything, but she tried it, and for the first time in years, she felt grounded. Not calm, grounded. Her kids noticed she wasn't snapping as fast. Her stress tolerance grew. She told me, "I feel like a commander stepping into a mission instead of a tired parent trying to survive the morning." That shift changed her entire household. But the story that stayed with me the most came from a man fighting addiction. He told me his mornings were his weakest moments, the time when his cravings screamed the loudest. I walked him through the protocol and asked him to anchor his identity statement to the version of himself he wanted to become, not the version he had been running from. He messaged me weeks later saying the protocol became the first victory of his day. The moment he proved to himself he still had control. Not every day was easy, but he fought harder because he started stronger. And then there are the seniors rebuilding strength. A 72-year-old veteran reached out to tell me he'd lost confidence after a fall. His body wasn't responding the way it used to, and his mind was starting to believe he was done. He used the protocol every morning before physical therapy. He wasn't just doing exercises, he was stepping into them with clarity, confidence, and presence. His therapist called it a mental switch. I call it reclaiming identity. Every story, combat or civilian, proves the same point. The protocol doesn't just work under perfect conditions. It works when you're scared, tired, overwhelmed, out of shape, out of confidence, or out of options. It works because it gives you the one thing most people don't know how to create on command. A mind that's ready before the world gives you a reason to hesitate. That's why I trust it. That's why I teach it. And that's why I know it will change your life if you let it. If you've made it this far, then you already know the truth. Nothing in your life changes until you change the way you face the first 5 minutes of your day. I can teach you tactics, discipline, and mindset, but at some point, you have to step into the arena yourself. And that moment starts tomorrow morning, not next week, not when life quiets down, not when you feel ready. Readiness is a myth. Discipline is the only real initiation. When I was a SEAL, I learned that identity isn't formed in big, heroic moments. It's built in tiny, invisible decisions made when nobody is watching. Those moments stack. They harden you. They define you. And your first moment tomorrow morning is going to tell you exactly who you are choosing to become. I want you to use the protocol tomorrow with zero negotiation. When your eyes open, you act. You don't roll over. You don't bargain with yourself. You don't let your mind search for excuses. You make the decision that every operator has to make. I move first. My brain catches up later. That 5 minute sequence is more than a routine. It's a doorway. On one side is the person you've been living as, the tired version, the overwhelmed version, the reactive version, the version trapped in a loop of trying instead of executing. On the other side is the person who wakes up with command, with direction, with clarity, with purpose. Identity doesn't shift because you want it to. It shifts because you behave like the future version of yourself before you believe you deserve it. You might think 5 minutes is too small to matter, but that's the point. Change doesn't begin with massive action. It begins with an undeniable signal to the brain. We are not the same anymore. And the brain listens. It adapts. Every morning that you run the protocol, you are training your mind to follow your will instead of your impulses. You are proving that discipline can be chosen, not inherited, that the comfort bias doesn't own you, that you are capable of far more than the 40% lie your brain tries to sell you. I've seen this shift happen in hardened operators and in everyday people who never thought they had discipline in them. I've seen men in their 60s rebuild confidence they thought was gone forever. I've watched exhausted parents transform into calm, centered leaders for their families. I've watched people claw their way out of addiction, one disciplined morning at a time. I've watched young entrepreneurs stop drowning in overwhelm and start leading their lives with clarity. The difference was never motivation, it was identity. Once they decided they were someone who executes, everything else fell in line. And now it's your turn. When you wake up tomorrow, I want you to act like a SEAL stepping onto a mission, not because you're pretending to be one, but because you are adopting the same mental framework, the discipline to act fast, the clarity to choose one objective, the focus to visualize resistance before it hits, and the courage to claim the identity you want instead of the identity the world handed you. You have potential sitting inside you that you haven't touched yet, not because it isn't there, but because your current identity doesn't demand it. This protocol does. So here's your assignment. Starting tomorrow morning, you run the protocol for 7 straight days, no excuses, no breaks, no negotiations. Those 5 minutes belong to you. Treat them like your mission brief. Treat them like the moment you decide who you are becoming. And when you get through the week, come back and tell me what changed. Tell me what shifted in your focus, in your discipline, in your confidence. Consider that your debrief. The mission is simple. Wake up, take command, and build the identity you've been avoiding. Your next level is waiting on the other side of 5 minutes. Now go earn it.